Hello, good day, viewers, and welcome to another session of Code with Addo. Today, we shall be looking at HTML for beginners. Yes, within my channel, I have a video I dedicated for HTML and CSS because ideally, in modern web development, when you build your web pages, it goes with CSS, right? HTML and CSS usually goes hand in hand. HTML like build, while CSS styles. And that brings me to say, like I always say, that HTML it's not a programming language. It is a markup language. The full meaning of HTML is hypertext markup language, and it was actually invented by Tim Berners-Lee, who is also the inventor of the World Wide Web, while working far back 1989, 1991, working as a British scientist with CERN. He invented the World Wide Web, and by 1994, when he stopped working with CERN, and he founded an organization called the World Wide Web Consortium, which actually today it's is the main organization in charge, like controlling and standardizing HTML, CSS inclusive. But in this particular course, we want to look at HTML alone. Like for beginners, we want to look at the basic structure, what is HTML, what you can do with it, how you can use it to build web pages. Now, the web pages might not be responsive, might not come out beautiful, but it is like the structure. In one of my courses, each time I describe HTML, I say HTML is like you building a house, right? When you do your foundation, put your block, maybe even to roof stage, have your doors here, have your windows, like the structure, the carcass. But as we all know, that is not the end of construction. To make it presentable, to make it looks wonderful aesthetically and everything, what do? You need to plaster, you need to paint, you need to bring some beautifications here and there, and that is where CSS comes in as a style sheet language. But in this particular course, HTML for beginners, we shall only be looking at HTML. We'll build something in HTML, and maybe later on in another course we'll pick it up and now add CSS to it. If you want to like our channel, click on the subscribe button and click on the bell notification to keep you updated. Yes, on HTML. Now, what we'll be doing in this course is this. We already now know what it's HTML. The full meaning of HTML is hypertext markup language. We've given a brief history of HTML, right? So now what do you do with HTML? Like I've said, you build your website with HTML. And in this HTML for beginners, I'll be taking you by the hand step by step on building your first simple but standard with the minimum sum. Okay, let me not use with the minimum because we might not be able to exhaust everything in detail. There might be an advanced course later, but at least with the basic minimum international requirement and standard to help you get through it. Thank you. Stay in touch while we move on to the editor and pick it up from there. Thank you and God bless you. If you want to like our channel, click on the subscribe button and click on the bell notification to keep you updated. Okay, let's head on straight to the editor now and put some codes together to showcase what we've been talking about with respect to HTML. And as a matter of fact, I will say that we'll actually be using HTML5, but HTML5 is just nothing to be worried about for now. Let's just still focus on HTML. But I would introduce it at some point, and it's just all about the semantic tags. Actually, I'll be dedicating another video for HTML5 mainly for semantic tags, right? So, but in this HTML for beginners, I will just introduce it briefly, but that won't be the point of reference. So let's go, like I always do, let's create a new folder on the desktop. We could just call it HTML. Let's call it HTML. Then let's open with our editor. You can just drag and drop on it. It will open it with the file intact, right? For the sake of this training, we shall be using Visual Studio. And if you don't have Visual Studio, you can head on to their official website and download it, or use this link below. And if you need a guide on how to set up Visual Studio, Visual Studio is just one of the popular editors used for writing your codes. You understand, like where you type, the way you use Microsoft Office to type your document and print. Visual Studio is just see Visual Studio as the Microsoft Office of a software developer. That is it. If you still need a guide, I did a short video on how to set up Visual Studio and get started. Please check the link and follow to get acquainted with, to get a grasp of how to go about Visual Studio. So here we have a folder. We've just created a folder on the desktop, and on this folder we're going to create our file. Let's create a new file and save it. Control N or file to head on to new. Then let's just save. Control S. Let's call this the index.html. Why am I using index? It can be anything actually, but index is just like the landing page. When you have files, usually in a folder or in a browser, the one with the index, either index whatever, index.jx, index.php, index.html, depending on the programming language being used, right? But the index file is like the most default place. The first thing when you visit the website, the first thing that displays the landing page. From there, you could now have links and routes to other pages, but the first place you hit is usually the index file. So that is the reason why I'm just naming this. So if not, there is nothing special. That doesn't mean that if I had named it about or learning.html, the most important thing is this last part, .html. It must have that extension. It must have it. It's a must if you are building for HTML, if it's an HTML file. So now we have this. So the first thing we'll be starting with is the HTML structure, what I call the HTML structure. The HTML structure is just like, okay, you want to build something. Okay, let's have a plan. This is where the parlor would be. This is where the kitchen should be. This is where the toilet. Just see it as a basic layout that you must always have. This is HTML for beginners. So there are some detail I might not be covering in this particular course, just not to make it more complicated or something. But please follow on. We'll have other session of HTML where we'll be dedicating sections. Like for example, now from this structure we are going to have, one of the things we'll be having, you'll be seeing very soon here, is what we call the head, right? The head. That head tag, there are many things, like there are meta tags, different meta tags that are in that place, that for the sake of this course, what I'll be doing is just to give a summary of them. But later on in other parts of the courses on the channel, you'll be seeing some key parts. Like you could see that we are dedicating a whole section of the course to meta tags. What are meta tags? The different meta tags, how to handle them. You know, there are other places we could give full attention to semantic tags. That is what brings life to HTML5, which is the modern HTML. There will also be another section dedicated to HTML5. What are the differences? Right, we'll be delving into details, and but for the sake of this course, HTML for beginners, I just want to give the most basic thing, but standard requirements to get you started. Then later on, you could navigate and check around, follow, and have other stuff. You could also visit their official documentation. Yeah, their official documentations are out there. Visit them. They have their official document here and there. Visit their channels and follow up, and that is it. But for now, let's head on straight to what we have. So the first thing in HTML, before I type anything, I want to mention something. Like I said in the intro, HTML, it's not a programming language. It's a markup language, and most of the blocks used in building HTML, you use tags. Tags are just like pair of open and close. When you open one end, you close it from another end to have a complete circuit, something like that, right? Like for example now, when you have P and the opening tag, this it's why this came up. This happened because of the editor Visual Studio, and that is one of the advantages. Like once you open a tag, it automatically closes. Although you could disable it in settings and other things, but for now it's fine. But look at something. Let me manually delete it. This is P, and why HTML is so interesting is this. When Tim Berners-Lee brought up HTML, he needed something to display on the web. He needed things to display information on the web, and he chose a language that it can easily, as in language that can be related by divers and make it so easy. You understand? He thought about a language and a means that is so easy to relate with, so to say. Like P for paragraph, H you see for heading. Some you even use your center. Some even down to the color. If you don't want to use the hexadecimal codes, you could use the red, yellow, blue, and it works perfectly. Right, and that is why HTML is so interesting, that you really don't need to be a pro, you really don't need to be a tech person to be able to learn it. You can pick it up, and sincerely it's a plus, especially when you start off like the way I'm trying to put it, that you're not just starting off, but you're starting off with the minimum standard. Right, there are some few standards that you must follow in web development to adhere with international best practices, you understand, to help with continuity. Yes, and that is the reason I'm here doing my best to take you step by step by the hand. And most of the mistakes you would have made doing most of this research, out of years of experience, I've put everything together and I've tried to make it so easy and straightforward. So the only thing I'm trying to talk about right now before we actually delve into this in reality, it's tag. If you want to express anything, you have the opening and the closing tag, and the opening tag starts with less than. The close, you see, a pair of less than and greater than makes up the opening tag. Whatever you put in is the tag. P is for paragraph, paragraph tag, right? Now the difference, the closing tag is exactly as P. The only difference is that it has this forward slash, just this forward slash. Whenever you see this forward slash, you know that it is the one that has the closing tag. The first one wouldn't have it, but the second one would always have it. For example, if we say this is a paragraph, we say this is a paragraph. This would display on the screen on the browser. This is a paragraph, but without this opening and closing tag, without the opening P and the closing P, this will display. These are hidden, the wrap up things that display or get rendered on the screen. So with this, I'm coming back to what I talk or what I call the HTML structure. And whatever you do, you have to save. Control S. You have to keep. If you do a new update, you have to save for the update to take effect. There are other editors and settings that could always auto save for you. But for the sake of this editor we are using and the settings we have here, I'll always use Control S to auto save for us to have the updated stuff rendered. All right, let's get started with our HTML structure. The HTML structure starts with the first tag being HTML, and now you already know, once I say a tag called HTML, you know that it will be a pair. I just hit enter now to have this pair. This is the opening, this is the closing tag. Like I said, I'm not giving attention to HTML5 in this case. Else, the first thing that would be there will be this doc type HTML. This tells the system that this document is an HTML5 document, right? Let's not worry about this, or let's just leave it. Actually, the only difference here is that the same HTML we started with, at least let that be there. That is the opening and the closing tag. Then please, I want to explain something briefly again. Remember, okay, or let me do that. I will do that in the body tag. Inside this HTML tag, what I just wanted to say actually is that a tag that has other tag in it, the outer tag is the parent, while the next inner tag is the child, if it is just one tag, or children if they are more than a tag and on equal level. Right? Now, what I'm saying again is this. The outer main tag is usually the parent tag, while the one inside is the child or children tag or element whatsoever way you wish to. They are actually the same thing. And in DOM, like the document object model, because what HTML does, HTML conform and relates directly with what the DOM document object model expects and works with. Document object model is like the inner representation of your web pages. Just the way you have this your HTML, it has like it has like a unique mapping with the DOM. And in the DOM, there's a feature in the DOM called bubbling. And what is the meaning of bubbling? The bubbling is just like the pattern or the process in which things happens, that event flows. And what does it mean? It means that when an event such as maybe a click hits whichever element on the dome on the tree, right? That is on the, I'm trying to use like words that can easily just relate this, but actually you just have to see this thing is like it's like things happening on memory, like virtually. They are not things that you could want to see physically with your eye, but that is how the machine, that is how computer, that is how the web works. It has a DOM document object model that has like a representation of everything happening. It has a representation of it internally, that once it hits, there are rules and protocols that work. You understand? They are like a standard that it must flow in that line. And in bubbling means that when an event occurs on any element, the element moves, the effect moves from that element to its parent, to its grandparent, to its parent, and all this parent is just telling you the hierarchy of how the elements are being mapped. And one simple illustration and example is the way this HTML are being represented, right? If what I've talked about, if it's sounding like a magic to you, like if it's hard for you, please don't get discouraged by that. Don't worry about that. For that might really not be necessary, but at least somehow you've been able to pick 1 or 2 points. Let's go straight to the coding because it's a practical something. Over time, right? Over time, we'll be having other courses. You could keep in touch if you need to reach out. We also have a platform, CodeWithAddo, where we have one-on-one personal training. But actually, that it's not a free. It's not a free training. It's a paid training, right? It's a paid training because it's open for our international students, mainly one-on-one, right? But that doesn't mean that there are some courses there that are actually not that expensive. Please, you could always check around. But what I'm trying to say is that if you need a one-on-one training, one-on-one coding training, that you know that you need that personalized stuff, that one we have a paid one. You can always sign up for any of the courses there, or follow this link and sign up. But notwithstanding, on the YouTube channel, we do as much as possible to bring stuff together on a regular basis, touching different programming languages that we handle, right? And from there, you can always follow us. If you have questions, drop on the comment. You could reach us personally, reach me personally at codewithaddo@gmail.com, and I will reach out. And irrespective of the one-on-one, when we see your zeal and passion, right, and we could see 1 or 2 other persons' zeal and passion, we could on our own. When I mean on our own, I'm representing CodeWithAddo. Yet I'm representing CodeWithAddo. I might be the principal partner and the forerunner of it, but over time, I might not be working alone. You might want to reach me and I pair you with another instructor, and yes, but it's somebody that you would know definitely that is already part of us, and it will be that obvious, right? We could on our own, by our own free will, from time to time, put together such people and have some one-on-one sections, live session, and over time we hope to invite other developers to come online on stream with us and have 1 or 2 things. And even you too, you could be surprised that once we drop tags and you do, and we see your passion you are meeting up, From time to time, we could call you up at least to come also share your own experience. It's fun. At least if you cannot delve into the most other complicated coding languages, for HTML and CSS, it's something I recommend. With that, you could build stuff for yourself. You stand the opportunity to work remotely with any company from anywhere in the world, from your home or anywhere. That is how it works, right? The sky, they say, is big enough for everybody to fly, and that is the reason we are doing this. One person's progress doesn't stop another. So we are here to dish it out as much as we can and be part of it, enjoy it, and catch it as much as you can. But please, once again, do well to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and please always keep your notification bell on so we could always be together. So we whenever we update, whenever we have new updates, you will always be like one of the few persons to catch it. So having explained and gone through this briefly, let's come back to our coding. And like now we know now that the main parent here now is the HTML tag, and inside it we have the head tag, right? This head tag I'll come back to read briefly. There are some few things that would be here, but whatever it's here doesn't display on the browser. Know that. In the head now we have the body tag. The body tag, it's like all the tag in this body tag, it's are the things that get displayed on the screen, that get rendered on the browser. Okay, that get rendered on the browser. Let me save this. I've saved this, and once this is saved, once we come back to our file, our HTML file, once you save a file and give it .html, it gives you a browsable file with your default browser. So now let's just open with Google Chrome. So this is, we've done HTML structure. This is the HTML structure, but nothing to display yet. Like I said, if we just say hello, whatever you display on the body gets rendered, but you don't just display, you use a tag. You see it gets rendered. It might be small. And please, maybe I should increase this screen a little bit. I think it's better, so that at least you don't need to strain. All right, now let's have this. We have nothing in here. Let's start with the head, right? Whenever you visit websites or something, the first thing I want to talk about is the title. Look at this upper part. Do I need to also increase this? If you look at this upper part, top left, where this index.html is, that is where the title usually display whenever you visit most websites. So what we do here is this. We could give it a title tag. You see, title is an English word. Easy to remember that it's for the title. Let's say hello HTML. Hello HTML. Once we save and come to our browser and refresh, the title has changed to hello HTML. So in the head tag, this is okay. Let me say this is actually about the only thing, and maybe the favicon, the icon that will also display beside it. By now it has a default stuff like this Atlas logo, but once you put your own icon, your own image, you can customize that. But for the sake of this basic class, we'll not go delve into that. But at least the title remains and it displays there. One of the things I would want to mention here under the head, and let me just head up to it straight, it's what we call the meta tags. We have many other meta tags, but maybe for the sake of this introductory HTML for beginners, let's look at just two meta tags, which is the viewport and the description. We could even ignore the viewport. When we go into CSS, we can go into viewport, or I could just add it up here. Let's just put it. But the main thing now, it's even the description tag. The description, the meta tag description. What now? Meta tag are tags. The way you write meta tags, they are not the way you write the regular tag like I introduced, that you have an opening and closer. These are what we call self-contained tags. You understand? They are self-contained. You don't need to have a closing tag for them. So in this case, the first one I'll be introducing is meta, and how you usually write it. You have your meta, you have your name. If it is for description, here you could say description. right? Then after it, you have content. In this content, what do you do? What is this meta tag? What is this description meta tag? What does it do? It helps with SEO, search engine optimization. When you have a website, when you want to be popular, when you want to trend online, there are key things that you know that people search on a daily basis. People might want to search on top president, top event happening. So when you build your content, when you build your website around such content, you have to key in your key names. Maybe here I might want to put my name. I might want to put code with Addo. Why did I put it? Now I've been saying welcome to Code to Addo. Many people want to say, okay, let me check up Code with Addo. Code with Addo. Go to Google Code with. So once I start adding it here, right? These things are not being displayed on your website, but these things are just like the internal indexing by search engines such as Google, other popular stuff. That the way people search online, it makes it easier for them to find you. Just say description is like giving information of the document. And meta, the word meta has nothing to do with the meta owned by Facebook, Instagram, or no. Many young developers do ask that question, and I've answered that question many times. Meta is a Greek word. It's just like information. Actually, it means like information of information. So it's giving you information of this document, this particular file we are working on. But not just this, apart from this meta, there are other meta that also serve different purpose. But for this particular meta name description, it is mainly for search engine optimization. You know, having information, basic information about the web page, about the document, about the project being out there so that it's easier for people to search. So it's very, very important, right? So in here, I could write HTML for beginners. HTML for beginner. I could add HTML5. You know, I could add so many wonderful stuff, right? I could add my first name. I could say HTML made easy, but not that you now form a big paragraph, as in just basic thing. And I think there are even maximum characters allowed. So you go for the key things, and you have it there. Like I said, if I save this and refresh, nothing it's going to be displayed on the browser. It is for internal stuff. Most of the things that get displayed on the browser are usually in this body tag. But like I said, the last thing I want to talk about here is the another meta tag called viewport, right? This viewport, it's like one of the inbuilt stuff because there is another course. That is why I place after this course, right? This is just HTML. We just want to build the structure, the content without styling. CSS comes to style. CSS comes to add beauty, add aesthetics to it. So please, if you are with me on this course, HTML for beginners, please try and follow up to the next course, right? CSS. The CSS is like the part 2 that complements and completes this. We'll build this website and you see how it would look without much beauty and how it would look after CSS has been introduced and added to it. Okay, but back to the meta tags. I said this name viewport. It's just mainly to make your website responsive, that depending on the device you are viewing it with, so it could work with that device, you know. But CSS add more value to it, add more power to that, especially using flex and media query. So please don't miss out on the CSS class. And there's also another class I'll be dedicating mainly for flex, just for flex and media query, the power of flex. And when you go to web mobile development, right, especially in React Native, where you have to use the flex by default, once you have this basic understanding, it will help you across board. But however, this course still remains HTML for beginners without the complicated stuff. But the only thing I'm just adding here is the viewport, and the viewport has to do with responsiveness with respect to the device with which you use to browse the particular document. So we have name equals to viewport. Then after that, as usual, we have the content. Then here in the content, we have the width, and here we have the device width, telling you that let it work with um, the any device, let it make the width of that device the default. Yes. Then we have the initial scale. We put this to 1.0. Then we close it this. Remember, this doesn't have like a closing tag, though. No, it's not necessary. It's not necessary. These are the few ones, especially in this particular case. So please, let's leave our head with this. We in the head tag, we have three children now, right? Three children, three elements. Okay, try to understand these terms from now because it's very, very important. Now, the head tag has three elements now, which is the title tag, the meta tag for description, which, like I said, give a summary of information of the website. Then the meta viewport that has to do with responsiveness, right? That has to do with responsiveness, how your web page will behave generally across different devices. So now coming to the body tag. The body tag, this is where everything happens. And I would have loved to start with maybe header, main, and footer, but let me leave that for the HTML5, later HTML5, right? But for now, let's face the normal HTML. Okay? All right. Or please, let's just go head on. It's better you just start by stretching yourself a little bit. Now, inside the body tag, you could start with any of the tags, such as the paragraph tag. Look at something like I started off on paragraph tag. Hello, paragraph, right? Once I do this and save, once you come and refresh, it will display now. You see hello paragraph. I've just zoomed in. I just zoomed in so to make it bigger. Hello paragraph, right? If it is heading, you know when you want to write, you have heading. Heading is like something that is usually on top and big. Now, if you have H1 tag, we have H1 to H6, and the smaller the bigger. That is H1 has the biggest font, while H6 has the smallest font. Usually, by default, you would want to think H6 should have the bigger font. Why? Because 6 is bigger. But in this case, no. The reverse is the case, right? If we have H1 and we say hello heading, and we say hello heading, and we save, you see, it's very big. And the reason why you are seeing these things even bigger like this is because I zoomed in. So on normal 100% scale standard, this is how it looks, but I just try to zoom in so this thing is a little bit bigger depending on what you are using to view this video. Okay, so H1 paragraph, at least take note of these two things, H1 and paragraph, because most of the things in text you have heading, then you have paragraph. Okay, H1, if we duplicate H1 just to see the difference in size, if we should duplicate this, we have H2. If you should save it, you see H1 is bigger than H2. Same all the way down. When we have H3, when we have H4, then we have H5, then we have H6. You see that all these H1 whatever do not appear. It's the things that are wrapped in them that get displayed, that get rendered, right? Okay. Let's say we add one to this, even without adding anything. It's that easy to understand. Yes. You can see H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6, and this is paragraph. This looks bolder, this looks bigger, this is the normal default paragraph. So take note of these two. Whatever you display here, right? Even if you have an image, there's a simple way to display your image. Let me say less than. There's the image tag. It is also one of the self-closing tags that you do not need a closing tag for it. If you should say source, and maybe you give it a name, logo.jpg, right? and you close it like this without having a closing tag. That means look at something. You see, it's let me zoom, it zoomed in already. There is nothing but image is meant to appear here. Image is meant to appear here. Why it's not appearing? Because in the folder where we have our file for this project, index is here. It is expecting to have that image we named logo.jpg. So for it to display, you must have your logo inside this folder and name it that same name, logo. And it must be a JPEG file. You know, we have different types of files. There is PNG, there's SVG. But for the purpose of what we've done now, since we say logo.jpg, we should have a logo there. But however, if for whatsoever reason, um, yes, the self-closing tag, you could have it this way. It's fine. Okay. So for whatsoever reason, if you do not have the image, the so-called alt, this alt, you could say logo image. When we say logo image, that is if for whatsoever reason, maybe due to browser, the image are not being loaded or whatever, it should just at least just add this text. Is usually a text beside it. That is if the image is broken, it's usually a text around it, and that is, you see, for this close question I actually added this forward slash to it. It's a standard. Even without adding it, it's fine, but the standard, it's let it be there. All right, this gives this. But now let's have a simple, let's see, let me see if I can, let me check my downloads if I can pick up a simple logo. Okay, yes, let's use this company logo. I've copied it, then I've brought it. Okay, it's on the desktop. All right, we have the logo here now. And is it actually a JPEG file? Yes, good, it's a JPEG file. So now when we come and I refresh, you see the logo gets displayed now, right? The logo gets displayed now. But you see how these things are appearing. This is not how a standard website usually will appear. Why? It's because we are building with HTML without CSS. CSS comes down, we rearrange, give this color. You could bring this to the center, makes it more responsive and what have you. But even within HTML, like when they started HTML in the early days, when Tim Berners-Lee brought HTML to life, then they try as much as possible to add some stuff within the HTML itself. Like this image now, the size that has been rendered is the original size of the image. That is what it will render. And if it is a uniform image, you could come and once you give it a width and maybe you said 200 pixels. Pixels are the units used in coding, just the way you could use feet. If you're in construction, you could use feet, you could use meter, you could use whatever. But in coding, we use pixels, px. So once I come, height will be automatic, and this works for this image because this image is a uniform image. Imagine it's a human being face that is big and it only gives it a width. It could stretch it, it could make the whole thing look funny. Okay, but that is where CSS comes in. And for the sake of this class, all we are just trying to do is simple HTML for beginners, right? And I'll be taking it again to another step. This is the basic for beginners that you need to understand to guide you into other parts. But to take this thing again a little bit further, what I want to do again, I'll just permit me to delete everything within the body tag while I convert this to a basic HTML5 document using the semantic tag. The semantic tags are what brings life to HTML, like the normal HTML4, you understand the regular. But when HTML5 comes in, it broke the semantic tag, and the semantic tags brought a lot of improvements. For example, before now, when you build HTML and you want to display a video, once you display your video, you need other third-party links to be able to control it, such as using Flash to control how the display and the control how the video displays and the control. But in semantic tag, for example, you could just use the video, you could use the video tag. You could use the video tag directly and add your video to it. Once you do that, and it automatically adds control, right? There are other tags. You can also use the audio tags, and it brings so many things to life, such as screen readers. There are many screen readers that automatically, like robots, try to detect something, like robots trying to detect something on your site. The use of semantic tags makes all these things very possible. It even makes it makes the speed, as in it makes your site even works faster. The speed comes alive, and many other beautiful stuff. It follows standard now that works with modern development, that works with modern web development and what have you. But for now, just follow on and just see them as a very basic thing. And there are a lot of them, but I'll be starting with just the basic ones, and the three things might want to introduce here, or four rather. It's the header tag. The header tag. Remember, the header tag is different from the head tag. We have head here without er. That one is a normal head tag in the HTML, but one of the very semantic tag. But header tag is a semantic tag used in HTML5, and it usually defines things that are usually in the top part of your web, right? In the top part of your web, such as your logo, such as your favicon, such as your menu, such as your search bar, and what have you, depending on how your design is, right? Then after the head, there's also the main. See that as the main. Just see it as the structure of, let's say, human being, if you want to reason it that way. I don't know. But then there's the third one, footer. Footer. This is where you see your copyright and what have you. You know, to write, to display, you write inside them. Okay. Now maybe the last thing I might want to introduce here is section inside main. Maybe when you have main something, after it you want to go into another one, you add your section, or so, right? So now maybe let's come back to this header, and here let's have our logo. Now let's have our image source, our logo.jpg. Then we add an alt text. This is logo. That wouldn't get displayed. It's only when the like I said, this is could have it this way. Let's leave it this way, or this is fine, whichever. By default it would display it, but we say we want to give it a width of 200 pixels. Why the aspect, it follows up with the aspect ratios automatically. So now we have the logo here, right? Let's say after the logo we want to have menu. Let's say we have home, about us, services, right? Services, and let's say contact us. Now we have this, but let's just not have this. Let's wrap it now around a header tag. Maybe let's use H1 so that it's big, for example, or let's use H2. Let's use H2 to do that. Now you see the use of all these tags. You don't just write, but you use tags for them. Let's say we have this. You see the way it's displayed. But normally we'll say we want this by the right, we want this by the left. Let this come smaller, let this have color, let this do whatever. That is the work of CSS, and that is why I said if you follow this HTML for beginners and you do not follow on up to where we have the CSS, you will not see the real beauty in this. But at least let's keep going. We have this, right? We have this, but also while we have this is the header. I wanted to introduce the div, but I think okay, let's go a little bit further before the div. Now look at something between home and about us. If we need more space, and I add space by putting my this by using my space bar, and I refresh, nothing happens. But there is a simple HTML. There's a simple HTML. There's a simple HTML way of doing this, and that is what is called the non-breakable space. Non-breakable space with ending with semicolon, and NBSP with semicolon, and non-breakable space. What this does is this: wherever this it's been added, it adds an extra space bar. Just see it as an extra space bar. When I refresh, you could see it. I've added a little. Now let's say we are adding so much. Let me copy and paste. Let me copy, paste. Sorry, let me copy. Let me say paste 4. Then let me copy this 4 and paste it across uniformly. About us, services, contact us. Once I refresh and I come to this place, you see it has opened up. Like there are spaces here. This is, you look at the space between about us, a contact us, you see how small, but look at this space here, how big. So each of that gives like a space bar, right? To this. Let's say we have this now, we already have this on our header. Let's say now we come back. Remember, I zoomed in. That is why these things are looking big. I come back to the main. Why I'm coming back to the main is that the only thing I need in my header now is the logo and my menu, right? But in my main, where I want to have maybe a write up, maybe the same logo and another write up under it. I don't I wouldn't write it in header because this is supposed to come to main. So inside main now, what I can do, I might want to add the same image source. Adding image now shouldn't be a problem. Please try and do a work. Your first thing, create an empty HTML document. Add H1, do an H1, do an H1 tag, do a paragraph tag, then add an image. Make sure that you have that image in the folder. Create a folder, create the HTML file, name it .html. Put it. Once you do it, please do a screenshot and share with us on the comment section, or send to me directly at codewithaddo@gmail.com. These are some of the things that will show that okay, you are really following, and we'll know how we'll help further from there. But for the meantime, like I said, let's have the image back. Then let's say auth. This is logo. Let's just put logo. Let's keep it simple. Let's give the same width. Maybe this time around, let's give a width of 400 pixels. A width of 400 pixels. All right, we have the image. Then under the image now, we want to use okay. Or before the image, let's have a heading. Let's have a heading. Let's call this heading. Let's use H1. Let's use H1 and say welcome to class. Right? We have H1, welcome to class. We've added our image. Then under our image now, let's just have a paragraph, a write up. Let's say hello, welcome to class. Let's save this and let's see what we have here. This is what we have here, right? Let me zoom out so we see it, how it appears. This is what we have here. This is our logo, this is our menu, this is our H1, welcome to class. Then this is the main image. Then under it we have our paragraph. Again, if you follow to this point, we've taken it a little further just from the normal header and wherever when we did the normal HTML without semantic tags. Now we've added semantic tags to this stuff. We've added semantic tags to it. We've added the header, we've added the main, and in the header we've added logo and menu where typically it comes in. And in the main, we've added welcome using the H1, we've added source, image, and we've added the paragraph. This paragraph could be so many text. Then maybe one last thing, let's have our copyright here, and maybe this, let's have H6 so that it will not be too big, right? Maybe we say what do we put? Copyright 2025 or whatever. Maybe we just put here code with Addo, right? Maybe we say copyright or whatever. We'll just put 2025. Let's just keep it simple. 2025. So you see it's very small. You can see it down there. Or let's use H5 instead. Let's use H5. H5 will be slightly bigger than H6. Of course, yes. Okay, so and one thing that it's not advised, you could use the center tag and wrap it around any element, but the center tag for now it's facing out and it's not. I will not advise you to ever use the center tag for a real project. Instead, we have a way of doing this thing standardly using our CSS. Like I said, CSS is for styling and wherever. So if I should refresh this, it will bring it to the center, or even around this welcome to class. Let's wrap the center tag around or welcome to class. You wrap it around it fully. It will cover it from beginning and cover it at the end, right? So even if you put it and it auto close it for you, you know you don't need it there. You will remove it or copy the whole H1 tag into it. So once I refresh this again, you will see this come to the center. But like I said, this center tag is not something I would advise. Is not the standard for modern web development. We use the CSS, and that does the magic. So thank you for sticking with me up to this point. And from here again, I will pick it up to the next level and add something more simple and a little bit more advanced. Welcome back, and this part brings us now. Let's just pick a section of this, right? Let's pick a section of this. Let's say let's leave the header. Let's come to the main. What I'm going to apply here, it's the same thing that we applied every other place in every other apart from the head. But even in the header, it's just a way of like having a wrap for your element. So now what we're going to do is this. In this main tag, let's remove everything from the now. Meanwhile, take note of something. Let me introduce comment. Now what is comment? Comment is this. You want your code to remember, you don't want it to be displayed. You don't want it to be displayed. Now if I should come and comment, if I should do less than this exclamation and I put this around, you see it has highlighted everything. If I should close it here, what it means is that this welcome to class will no longer be displayed here, right? But it's still here in my code. Maybe I want other people, or there are times what you use comment for mainly, you give information that header starts here, main starts here. Okay, yes, you use it to write information. Or at times as a software developer, there are some code you might want to reference later on, but you don't want them deleted, but you just want them to be there when you want to rearrange something or correct something. So I might be introducing comments shortly, so try and understand what it means. So if I should bring it here, that means from that place to that place, it could be. So I could do something like this. I could say reserved for later. Okay, I'm just using it to add meaning to my stuff. I could say reserved for later. That means if it comes here, I would still give this the opening because I've already closed that there. I will still remove this. So it wraps up with this. So depending on how you want to use it. But for now, let me just comment this out. I would still use it. I will still copy it into what we want to do. But what I want to introduce now is div, with your opening and closing tag div. What is a div? Div is a division. Div, the full meaning of div means division. It means that it's just a way you arrange your website that okay, I want this is section, this div is for logo, this one is for menu. There could now be a div. You can have one div, have another div inside div, have many div inside div, and the same principle work for parent, child, and children. Okay, div is just like you separating it so that later on, even when you are using CSS, you can target the particular div that behave this way. Give this div this color, give it this background, give it this height and width. But for now, just know that div are just a way of arranging our work. So now that we have this, let me remove the comment and just bring everything into its own div, right? So I can come now. This I will put it in a div. I'll put it in this div. It has its own div now, right? Then I will have another div. Then I will move the image now into the div. I'll move the image now into the div. Okay. Then this last div paragraph. I would also okay, let's put it this way. So all right. Okay, so this other div too, that last one, I will also put it into its own div and give it like this. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. Just that I've arranged them inside their divs. Nothing has really changed. So nothing changes. Just that I've have them now in a div and I've arranged them, right? One last thing I would just need to maybe say in this div is this. For the sake of reference, later on, if you want to reference these divs for certain things, to have certain things, you will just give each div a class. A class is just like you mapping it to have an identity, that if you want to call me later, if you want to use me later, if you want to design me later, if you want to add color to me later, you call me by using this my name, like a tag name, like an ID number, right? So let's just call that a class. In programming languages, we use class often, but for the sake of this HTML for beginner, just understand class this way. Let's say here now, we could give this class, we could say heading, right? Then here, we could come give this a class and call it logo. Then here in the div, we could give this class, maybe we'll call it our content. We'll call it our content. Nothing has changed, just that we've had everything now in division. Like I said, division is just a way of arranging your work and making it have structure, such that when you later on use it, you can use it, call it either from CSS or from wherever. Okay, that is that. If you've stayed with me again up till this point where I introduce divs to our work, then wonderfully, you've done well. You've done well. And I want to give you an assignment again. The same work you've done, that you have your logo, that you have your H1 or any of the heading tags you decide to use, and you have your image. Please go back, restructure your work, add divs, make them have div, and at least just add class. Use that class to be any name. Okay, like in this header now, would also need to like have two div here. Let's just sorry, sorry, look at something. Yes, yes, we could leave it. We could have this same class logo. We could also have it in different places. It's just because we are using that as an image. Let our logo remain. It works fine. So that means here I could want to just come again and give this a div. And give this a div and put everything in here. But then I'll remove this. Don't let it confuse you. I usually like having it this way for now, so it's so easy to relate with, that this is the opening and this is the closing div. Then these two, let's cut this out. Let's cut this out and have this div as well. Yeah, fine. We can actually close this if you wish, but I zoomed in so this thing is clearer. So yes, we have it here. So everything now we have in div. So let's refresh. Nothing changes. Nothing changes. But imagine how this thing will look so beautiful when you apply CSS and build on it. Okay, thank you for staying by. Thank you for staying by. If you followed up to this stage, you are doing very well. Hit your assignment, do it, and drop it in the comment section or send it to me directly at CodeWithAddo@gmail.com. Please do not forget, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and keep your notification bell on. Thank you. So welcome back. So what we'll be doing here next is adding some other little elements, like our vocabulary. Just like when a child is learning English, he learns come, he learns go. Excuse me, can I have it? So now there are other few things I would still want to introduce, even though this is still for beginners. And please remember that we have other courses out there that has both HTML and CSS. You can follow this link. And we also have a dedicated course to CSS as well. You can check out this link too. And please check our description channel. Always keep in touch. You could subscribe to our Discord and be part of our Discord community. Please like this video, comment, share, like, and keep your notification bell on. Thank you. So now, like I said, the next thing I would want us to look at is now it's list. List. What do we mean list? Let's say you have some items you want to display, right? There's what we call ordered list and unordered list. Ordered list um have them in numbers by default. It will add one, two, three. Then while on ordered list, we just put them like a bullet point. Maybe after that we look at form, how to have form, how to display form. Then maybe after that we look at tables, how to display tables. Then with that we can have that for our simple HTML. Even comment to this point, comment this far up to just this point, you learned so wonderfully well. But let's head on while I add list to this, and I'll just go through this briefly as it's actually not a main day. So under our heading, let's go under our heading now. Before I start, let me have a div for it. Let me just have a div for it. Now in this div, let me call this div let me give it a class. Let me call it listings. Let's call it listings, right? All right. So inside it, let's start with ordered list, ordered list, right? Inside the ordered list, now you now have your list. Let's say you have your list. Let's say you see the first list is table, the second list is door, then maybe the third list it's bell. Once you refresh, it's going to by default add 1, 2, 3. You can see 1, 2, 3 added to it by default. Why? Because it is an ordered list. By default it has that with it. Now let's say after the ordered list we come, and the next thing we want to do is on ordered list. On ordered list we have our L1. We put the same thing. Maybe we put car now. Guys, maybe we have car. We have bike. Then we have boot. Once we come and refresh, what comes next? You see it's like bullet point by default. And please take note of something. You see that the way div, once you have your div, each div comes on top of another. Each div comes on top of another. By default, that is how it behaves. That is how it behaves in HTML. But don't worry about that. When you follow up to CSS, we would understand in details what I'm trying to talk about. So thank you once again for following up to this stage. We've just done list, ordered and unordered list. Please like, share, subscribe. Thank you and God bless you. You're welcome back. And here let's briefly look at table. So what we'll do as usual, we'll create a new div. We'll create a new div and give it a class. We call the class tables, right? Then we come inside. Now we have the main for the table. We have the main parent tag called the table. Take note of what we call the rows and the column. Rows are horizontal while columns are vertical. So here when we come and like have tr, this is called the row. This is the row. Tr is called the row, defines a row in a table. Then now if we want something at the head, usually the first one, inside it we'll have the th, right? We'll have the th. The th defines a header cell, usually a column label, right? The content is by default bold and center. That is the work of th, is by default bold and center. So if like you have a table and you want something like to be at the head, what you will have inside of it is th. But for other ones it will not be th. For other ones it will be table, td. For other ones it will be td, that is table data. Table data. Tr means table row, th means table th means table header, td means table data. Okay, please take note of them, while the table is the parent tag for them. Okay, so since here we want something to be like the head, we use like the table header in this case, and maybe let's say we have serial number, and let's say here we have another th. Maybe we have name, right? Maybe we have here now, maybe we have another th. We have another th. Maybe we call this maybe age. All right. This is a rule. This would display a rule. Let's refresh and see. This would display a rule. You can see table name. Look at this left. Let me zoom. Look at serial number, name, and age, right? So now to have the content under it, that means you will also have another role again under it, another role. And in this role, you must have your information. For this, in this case, table data. You will now have your table data and give it maybe John Joe or whatever, right? John Joe. No, that is not the first thing. The first thing there is the serial number. Okay, the serial number. The first thing is the serial number. So you have our the first stuff we have here is the serial number. We could give it one. Then the other table data. Let's say we call this Tom or whatever, right? Maybe age. We come and give it TD, and maybe we have here maybe we have 10. Let's say 10 years. Once we refresh this, you see you have the data all here in a tabular form. So what you do, you can always duplicate this and add more information. This will become like serial number 2, or maybe here we have Jerry, then maybe here we have 12. Okay, so once you refresh, you have your serial number 2, and that takes you all the way. Thank you for sticking up to this point. What we just learned now is how to do basic tables without styling using just HTML. Like I said, once you're part of this class and you've come up to this stage, in the next class will be CSS, as in other courses will be CSS. In our other course is CSS. So follow up to the place. If you've been following up, please update your own personal assignment. Try to work on table. You could make it as wonderful as you want, depending on the information, but it's usually the same thing. Drop it on the comment section. If you have questions, drop on the comment section, and please always like, subscribe, share, and comment on our work. Thank you, and God bless you. Yeah, welcome back. We've done table. So the last thing I want to look at here is form. Form. Maybe you have your login form. Basic thing about form. But before then, let's have our div. Like we always say, let's just have it in divisions. Let's give it a class. Let's call it forms, right? So again, just like our table, the main parent tag will be form. Inside here is action. Maybe if you want it to go to other page when something is being done, when when you add other stuff to it. But for the purpose of this thing, all we just need is form to form, right? And in this form to form, let's say you have like a login form. Let's give it a title H3. Let's say we use H3, or let's call it registration form, right? Let's see what displays. That is expected to display just the registration form. You can see this is the registration form here. All right, now inside the registration form we want to have name. We want to have name. The first thing we start with here is what we call label. This label is just like where you put your name, that okay, this is where the name will be, this is where the phone number, like this is the, I would say, label for, if it is maybe username, for example, you could say username and close it. Then it has its own closing tag too for label. Okay, so you could say username. Now, once we do this, what shows, it's just like it's telling you that there's a space for username, right? Now, inside this username, you might want it to go to, maybe if you want it to remain, look at something. Okay, let me know. After the username, let's now have maybe input type. What you want to accept for input type is what? Let it be text. Then the name, just give it a simple name. Let me yes, let's give it a name. Let's give it a name. Let's give it a name. Let's say maybe the name, let's call the name username. Then maybe let's give it an ID. I usually love to add this stuff. ID is just when you need it for other things, just the way we've been doing for like class. Okay? ID is another way of class, but this one you could use it easily for your form. They serve different purpose, but for now, just know that in your form, have your label for, right? Then after that, have your input type, then have your ID. Okay? Have your input type, then have your ID. Okay? Let's take call this username for now. Let's take call this username for now. Then let's close it. Now we have our input type text, name, user name, right? Then the ID itself, it's what? It's username. So now because it is text, it's going to add an input field that accepts text. Look at it, that accepts text. Okay, so here we could make our username, we could make this our username capital. Okay, and if you want this thing, if we put this in front of it, we have this, right? If we put this in front of it, we have it this way, we have it this way. Okay, remember, if we want something to go to the next line by default, this place, if you should put break in front of this place, less than br break, what break does is that break is telling you that that thing should not be on the same line, but it should go down to the next line. Look at it. Can you see this line comes under it? That is the work of break. It works the same thing in text. If in between this registration form, front of this place, if I should put br in front of anywhere I put break, the next text or the next element would break to the next line. And if I should put more, if I should add more break, it will keep adding more empty line horizontally that way. If you even want there to be much space, you can now use plenty break. You can see, right? But that is not what we are doing. But for now, let's leave the break under this form, and maybe here we could have after that we could have another label. We could have another label. Inside the label we have for, maybe for, we say full name, right? Maybe we say full name. Okay, inside this full name we can now say have your full name in there, have your full name there. So let's also give it a break, and inside there let's have our input type. The input type is just telling that what kind of data should they accept, text, number, password. There are different types of it. There's a course dedicated for that, but for here let's just look at the most basic ones. This is still text. This is still text. Then after the text you could give it a name, let it be full name. Then we could give it an ID, let it also be full name, and we close it. Then let's have two more, maybe under this label for, let's have phone number, let's call it phone. Okay, let's call it phone. And here let's say phone number. We have our phone number here. Then inside the phone number we say we have our input, the type. Now since we want it to be, number, we are going to put number into it, so it will no longer be text, it is number. So once we have the number, we close it. So inside it now, we are not done. The type is number. The name, let's also give it number, right? Once we give it number, let's give it an ID also. Let's give it an ID of number. So once we have an ID of number, once we save, now look at something. Once you come to refresh your page, this way, you see you have username. Something is wrong. We did not break somewhere. Let's use our break. After this label we broke, so after this one we need to also break it. Okay, and save it. So once we check it, something is still wrong. Full name label, no, it is not. Yes, but after here we still need to break. we still need to break. Okay, we still need to break this, then break this. Maybe I'll just copy the break and paste. Then here, label for name, we broke it here. Then let's add it twice here as well. All right, then here too, let's add it twice here as well. All right, now let's save. So we have it in order now. Okay, so now once you enter here, let's say Tom, it will type in text here, Tom Jerry, it will also type, but here once you come to type in text, it only accepts number. Why? Because the input type it's number. Okay, let's say now we want to add passwords to this. We can just copy this and paste. The only thing now will change, we change this to password, of course, password, then change this to password. Input type is also password. Now this input type being password, it's what ensures that once you type, it becomes like encoded. You get, once you type, look at, that is how you have your password now, right? This is how you have your password. Let's just be consistent with our files password. All right, now the last thing we want to add to these is, let's add input type. Once you add submit, by default you have a submit form there. Let's say we give it name. Let's say we give it a name. Let's give it a name submit, right? Once you have this, is also a self-closing tag. You see you have your submit button here, right? But now let's say you want the name not to be submit, you want it to be a different name. You can give it value, whatever name you want to give it. Let's say you call it register now, and you save. Once you refresh, you can see our form display. This is our form. This is our form here. So we have different input type. We have text, we have phone number, we have password. We have other input types such as date and what have you. But for now, for the sake of this, for the purpose of this class HTML for beginners, we'll limit it to this. And maybe the last thing I might want to do here is to wrap it around the center tag. To wrap it around the center tag. But remember, like I said, the center tag, it's becoming outdated, is not what I would encourage. We're just using this because we're in basic HTML. Once we move on to our CSS, which I also encourage you to check out our CSS, because you will see the transformation. Let me zoom out. This is what we have. I actually zoomed in so it could be bigger, so you don't have any stress doing anything. You see the way this website is, right? We have logo, we have header, we have tables, we have registration form. Look, it's looking this rough and scattered, not looking well presentable. But when we get to CSS and we start styling, we'll pick up this same project and apply some styles, some designs to it, and you will see the difference. So you will know that you don't just end it here. CSS is the second part that complements it, that makes you have complete, beautiful, responsive, modern web design and web pages. So you've been able to build your first basic website using HTML. Update your own task and ensure you drop it on the comment section. If you have other questions, drop on the comment section, and please do well to like this video, subscribe, keep your notification bell on. Please share this video and keep up with your coding. Don't give up. Thank you once again. See you again in another session. Thank you and God bless you. Do well to like our channel, click on the subscribe button and click on the bell notification to keep it updated.